So now I'm joined by Claire Moore. She is the Chief Learning Officer at the International Carwash Association. So that's a real thing.
It's a real thing. There's an association for everything.
That's true. I mean, the more I delve into it, it's amazing how far and wide the association net is cast.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really is.
And so, I mean, it actually sets up, I think it's an interesting conversation because, I like to delve into all these industries where things get very complex and layered because, and I've said this on the podcast before, a lot of times, in the past, I was an industry analyst and we do a lot of research and everything gets boiled down to these sort of generic organizations. And so people think of them as very structured and everyone's in the same building and they have a same set of jobs,
Right.
where that's actually probably the minority of what's going on in the real workforce. You've got people who are displaced or dispersed and geographically, and something like an association, you've got sometimes massive groups of people that none of them work for the same.
None of them work for the same company.
Right.
And then the kind of companies are completely different. So you've got a mom and pop store that has one or two stores that has been around forever and they've kind of done things the way they've always done it. And now you've got private equity owned, networks of stores that might have 400 or so car washes all across the US. And so how do you try and find some consistency in training amongst all of those people and job competencies and positions when everybody's kind of doing it a little bit differently?
Yeah. And it's interesting because there's, the common thread that runs through them all is the industry. So, you sort of build to that, but then you have to figure out all the complexities of, like you said, the ways in which, these things are structured, how people want content, how they're going to learn. So, again, I think that's fascinating, but we can talk a little more about sort of the association environment.
Yep.
What I wanted to start off with is, obviously we're here at DevLearn, which, again, is sort of a symptom of association, right?
Right, exactly.
But you are delivering a session here at the show, and you're talking about resilience and building resilient learning programs.
Yep.
So, it's a great word. I think when you say it, people say that sounds something like I want.
Right.
I want resilience. What are we talking about? Like, what do you mean when you talk about it like that?
Yeah, I think of resilience as flexibility almost. I think, COVID's a great example that you go down one road and you think everything's hunky-dory and we're moving down, and then all of a sudden there's a disruptor that comes along and disrupts your workforce and it disrupts your environment and it disrupts the whole world around you. And so resilience to me is about flexibility, the ability to pivot, the ability to be able to think about a big picture and not just do things one way. I think especially the modern learner today just wants to have a lot of different options and they need to learn differently. And so when you're building that learning ecosystem for a group of learners, how can you build something that can be consistent, but also can tap into all of the different things that may happen around them?
I think we're all sort of glad to not be talking about the pandemic on a daily basis anymore. Yeah. But it's made such an indelible mark. And I think that's one of the things is I think organizations realized how perhaps non-resilient they really were.
Totally.
Yeah. I mean, I think about, organizations would always talk about, well, we have to be change ready and we have to be prepared for this. And, they on a lot really thought they were.
Yeah.
And then something like this happens and it really shows you, okay, maybe not.
Right.
And so in the wake of that, there's a lot of changes and then people get their heads around this idea of, okay, yes, let's be more resilient. But then, I feel like there's a complacency that sets back in when the next thing doesn't come right away.
Yeah.
And the idea is that you have to know that there is another thing. I think we're seeing that. Where are some of the things that you've seen, or maybe some of the things that, you've tried with the association to kind of dig into that resilience, any changes that were made in the wake of that?
Yeah, so I mean, we started out with an e-learning strategy thinking, this is the way the modern learner wants to learn now. And what we didn't account for was that our customers, our industry doesn't sit in an office all day.
Right.
So most of them don't even have computers, right? There might be one computer in the office of the car wash, but they don't have that time in front of a screen or in front of a place to be able to really engage with the training. And for it to really translate for them, they need to be hands-on in doing some of that. So that was one way that we kind of chose to adapt our ecosystem for this audience, was to make sure that, yes, we're going to provide short, relevant pieces of e-learning for them that they can access on a device anytime, anywhere. But also we need to be able to track that back to what they're doing every day. We need to be able to give them a blended experience where they're going to be able to go out and practice what they're doing on site in their environment and make it really, really relevant for them. And so we've kind of adapted how we've delivered our training over the years, and we listen all the time to our customers about what they need and what they're looking for from us. We're delivering into an organization that sometimes doesn't have an L&D person who's administering the
Right.
training, right? They might have a director of operations, they might have a trainer, but it's not someone who's thinking about how am I gonna disseminate training in this organization, and so we've had to adapt to almost be an extension of their team, and that's different across every single kind of group that we work with, and so, we're constantly sort of changing and adapting to the organizations that we're working with.
Yeah. Previously, I mean, given the scope of the association, was there a lot of more in person stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I think all training was pretty much done
Yeah.
in
Okay.
person, but there was no consistency, right? So,
Right.
like, the way you'd learn is you'd get the job and you'd show up and then you'd shadow someone for a little while and then you try it on your own and you sunk or you swam, right? What we're trying to see now is as these organizations grow, as they are hiring a more professional workforce, as they're trying to build careers in the car wash industry, which probably 10 years ago, nobody would ever think, "I'm gonna have a career in the car wash industry." They needed to refocus on professional competency and standardization and, building those skills that will kind of take them through a career path, and so that's what we've endeavored to do with them is to really kind of create that competency model for them that will help an employee start from ground zero and then be able to work their way up. That in-person training will never go away.
Right.
But if we can supplement that with some consistent foundational training for them along the way, then mission accomplished.
This audience, so there, I mean, given the unique nature of what it is, and are you guys the main source of training in this industry, or are there other? Do they can get create their own maybe?
Yeah, most of them are, I like to say that we provide the foundations and they provide the special sauce. So their differentiation in the market and who they're serving and the way they speak to their customers or how they might serve their customers is going to be their special sauce. So there's going to be an element that they're always going to create themselves, but we want to provide the basics for them. We want to teach them how to be good managers. We want to provide them, how to coach members of their team, how to sell an unlimited club at their car wash, how to do all those foundational things that are going to make them more well-rounded managers. Oftentimes, the people you see working car washes come from a really mechanical background or they like to tinker with things, but they might not have those management skills that they really need to run a business. And so that's what we're trying to give them is some of that foundational management and then let their organizations kind of give them what I call that special sauce.
Yeah. So it seems like it's pretty leadership development heavy.
Yeah, yeah, very much professional development, leadership, management skills based training.
Yeah, because then that's even, you know, on top of the complexity of the environment, leadership development itself is often a very challenging.
Totally. And, you can get leadership development courses wherever you want, but most often you're gonna find those guys, like, sitting at a water cooler or sitting behind a desk, and that's just not the environment that they live in, and so how do we adapt that to their environment, their scenarios, their work
Hmm.
that they're experiencing every single day?
Okay, so what are some of the modalities or content types or delivery methods that you're seeing that you recently that you seem to find are becoming the most effective?
We've had to get a little bit creative with the content types that we've offered because, again, our workforce is so diverse. They come from totally diverse educational backgrounds. Some may have college degrees, some may have never finished high school. They all learn really, really differently, and their work experience, their life experience is all bringing something different. So we incorporate a lot of video, we incorporate a lot of audio, we incorporate a lot of interactions that we want them to work with, some animations. We've really tried to kind of run the gamut and keep it consistent still, but make it entertaining enough that someone wants to stay engaged with the content and almost make it feel like they're sitting on their own favorite social media
Mm.
platform engaging with that. So we want to bring it kind of to their space and to where they are, to make sure that it still feels like they're getting something out of it. They're learning, but they're also having fun with it.
Yeah, yeah. So this is a question I don't know the answer to is uh, that resonates with the audience because we work with a lot of different types of organizations, and we find in the manufacturing space, one of the challenges that L&D teams face is it's a pretty set in its ways industry.
Yeah,
They do things, and as the learning teams try to, try new things, it's a lot harder because typically the workforce had been, older, but that's actually, now turning over just
very much. Yeah.
the way aging works, and so they're trying to reset. And in my head, I was thinking, oh, maybe the car wash industry is similar, or is it not? Is it
I
much
think
more diverse than that?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're seeing a lot more young people. And
Mm,
so they're technology nativists, which
right,
was never there before. So
right.
they're much more comfortable engaging and learning on their phones or on their devices because that's just how they've
Mhm.
experienced the world. So that works in our favor, I think. I think if we had tried to do some sort of course development like this even 10 to 15 years ago, it would have not been received nearly as well just because the workforce at that time just wasn't used to engaging with content on their phones.
Mhm.
Now we just kind of bring it into their realm, right? Make it feel like it's something that they're using every single day. And because that workforce is trending younger, at least to the people that we're trying to reach, that management level, they seem to really engage with it and really enjoy being able to get content that way. The nature of the younger workforce coming into this business too, they're seeking out training much more than I think anybody ever would. It's expected, right? If
Mhm.
they're competing to go work at Joe's Car Wash with a job, in an Amazon fulfillment center or at Chick-fil-A or whatnot. It's an expectation they're gonna get trained, and they're gonna have some sort of consistent training for them now. So, you can't really scoot by in our industry anymore without offering something that's professionally done and that's, meeting the learner where they need to be.
Are you also still as part of what you do you put together in-person,
We do, yeah.
learning as well?
We still do in-person learning. We've experimented with a lot of different formats. We're continuing to experiment there.
That was sort of my next question.
Yeah,
As you seen that evolve, now that you've got all these other options at your disposal,
yeah.
for a while, people would talk about things like, digital learning or even micro learning, all this. Oh, the classroom is dead. We don't need it anymore. You don't. But to me, I've always been like, no, what you're doing is you're targeting the different types of things in the way they should be used and what we should still be doing in person, but we can do it differently now.
Yeah, yeah, we're experimenting with a lot of different things. I mean, I think the traditional classroom-based learning isn't, as impactful as it used to be. I don't know if it's a generational thing or whatnot, but I feel like that level of sharing that you used to get doesn't exist anymore. I don't know if they're folks are just more introverted or they're just used to being kind of more individually based learners, but, unless you're at the kind of an elevated level, I feel like that benefit of having that network in the classroom with you,
Mm,
it doesn't exist quite as much as it used to, but we're working on some live coaching, whether that's done, via, like, a webinar or whether it's done in person. I think shorter experiences, whether it be at a trade show or a program like this where we can get them together for shorter amounts of time where it's not quite as much of a, um, investment of their time to get away from the business really works effectively. But that in-person training where it's really important is honestly on the job, and we affect that a little bit less, but
yeah.
helping our organizations to really create those experiences, consistently and in a way that's gonna, um, really drive home expect or outcomes from
Right.
those employees is important.
So as far as the training itself, it's, obviously there's a heavy focus on leadership development. But is there sort of like a core set of industry specific training that you guys build that's
Yeah, we focused our training around management competencies. So we did a whole job task analysis around this management group, and so we identified kind of the 5 core competencies that we think a good, successful manager needs to have, and they're focused around talent development, so running their team effectively, finance and operations, marketing and sales, communication and customer service, and leadership. And so that's what we've built kind of our entire training platform on. We're gonna kind of bring that down a little bit as we move into the future. We wanna do some more safety training. That's another area where we really feel like people have a need. They're constantly doing monthly safety trainings. It's kind of part of their environment, but, again, that consistency, that rapid development is not a competency that they typically have within their organization, so if we can help them with that, that's another area where we wanna look to make a difference. So,
Mm.
we're listening to the customer all the time. We're listening to what the industry needs, and the industry's changing and evolving so quickly, that their needs are evolving so quickly too, and so, we're trying to be responsive in that.
I come back to some of the unique constraints or just characteristics of this association environment. Learning in general, even if you're just training your internal organization, they're very challenged by the measurement piece, being
Right.
able to show impact. And we're having and this is happening to me because of training, and this, and we're impacting the business. But then you look at something like an association space, where you're that much further
Further away.
removed from the actual business. What's the challenge there? How do you guys address that? The ability to say, did what we do work?
Make a difference?
Right.
Yeah, I know. It's the question and the that we're trying to crack. Like,
Yeah.
if we could tie training to I mean, honestly, the training that we're putting forward affects every part of the customer experience, the internal employee experience. I mean, it should
Mm.
profitability, efficiency within the organization, but being able to directly tie that to their operations and being able to say, oh, well, your, revenue increased by X% this month is a direct reason for that training. That's hard to do. Um, but I think, when we look at things like turnover rates and we see those decreasing because people feel like they're getting an investment
And they
made
report
in
this
them.
back.
They do. Yeah. We,
Yeah.
we work closely with them to try and connect those outcomes, but it's hard to do.
Right.
It's really hard to do. I mean, that's the one thing I really wish I could.
Well, even the
I
fact that they report back to you,
Yeah.
that's one of the challenges I've heard is that you can't even get this information
Yeah.
because they get the training and they're like, okay, thanks.
Yeah.
We're done with
I mean, a lot of it's more anecdotal than anything
Yeah.
else, unfortunately. I mean, you want those really nice numbers, but being able to even hear just from the learners, we give them, optional satisfaction surveys, and being able to hear from the learners like this was really relevant to what I'm doing on my job. This scenario happened just yesterday. So that to me is the win-win. Like if we can bring those scenarios to them into their life and into their ecosystem, then that is hopefully helping it stay more sticky and helping them do a better job on the job.
Mm. So you come to something like this, like a DevLearn, and I'm sure you've gone to other things and you're connecting with other L&D professionals that
Mm.
work maybe primarily internally for their own organization. Do you feel as though the work that you do is there a palpable difference? Because essentially the learning that you're creating, delivering, that is the product of
Yeah.
the association.
Yeah.
It's you may not be selling it directly piece by piece, but that is what you're providing as a service, as opposed to this is something we do as an organization internally. Does it put a different like flavor on what you guys do?
It does. I mean, I think in some ways it would be easier if we were just doing it for our
Hmm.
internal organization because there's, you're connected to that work every day. You know where the training gaps are and you can be really responsive and be able to do that. On the other hand, in an industry where there hasn't been consistent training, it's really rewarding to be able to create something and to be able to deliver a product that is actually really helping organizations grow their people and really keep their people engaged in the work that they're doing. And especially in the car wash industry, again, there's a whole new level of professionalism that we're seeing there and careers that are being created out of this industry that never existed before. And so you like to think that you're making a little bit of an impact there, right? And helping them do that. And so, yeah, it's a little bit different. It's not just about instructional design and great content. It's about now we're thinking about the marketing and the sales of it and the whole strategy and what's next. And so, um, we're a little bit of a different
Yeah, of
beast, but it's always good to get other perspectives from everybody else, and I think
course.
that always helps us kind of think about what's next for us.
Yeah, and I think, regardless of the industry, I think all the professionals are after the same thing. They want to
Totally.
create, world-class,
Yeah.
engaging, impactful training, right? But if you're doing it internally, there is this sort of unspoken thing where your audience is captive, right?
Mhm.
But they're going to be there
Yeah.
and they're going to take what you deliver to them. I'm not saying that you're just going to give them bad stuff, but it shaves away this layer of, no, I actually have to sell this to
Right.
you, and I want you to be satisfied and happy enough that you're going to come back and keep.
Oh, and by the way, I'm not at your location telling your people to actually take it. So, like, when it comes to an actual implementation, I always talk a lot about readiness. I said, if you don't have somebody who's going to champion this and to make it important within the organization, I'm not going to sell it to you because I don't want you to invest in something that doesn't get used.
Right, and then the experience is, "Well, this didn't work,
Right.
and it's your fault."
Yeah, your content was bad. No, you just didn't have someone there to do it. Yeah, exactly. So it's a bit of a different kind of engagement, but we really think about customer success, and we really want to help them be successful and bring it to them
Yeah,
in a way that's going to work for them.
yeah. Coming back to the resiliency thing, you talked a little bit about, "Oh, we want a little bit of this and a little bit of that," and, I think prior to the pandemic, that was already the conversation was we need to broaden our approach to the
Hmm.
types of modalities, try a lot of different things, and I think that the pandemic did bring into sharp focus that is part of resiliency, the flexibility. It isn't necessarily do these 5 things.
Right.
It's put yourself in a position where you can change depending on what's happening, right?
Yeah.
The audience changes, the business needs change, something in the world
Yeah.
changes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's I mean, I think it's a great topic, and I'm glad you're speaking about it here. Is there anything that you're you and your team are either currently working on or like you see in the near future that you're kind of excited about, something you might try new?
Not that we're working on yet, but I mean, you come to all these conferences and the big topic these days is AI, right? And all of this. Yeah. I mean, it's like literally there's no session that you go to that
That's
doesn't
true.
talk about that. But you think about just what the future could be like.
Mhm.
and with, these LLMs and how you can feed them some information and really just be able to bring those experiences to people, digitally, every day. It's mind-blowing and exciting, and I always feel like I'm taking notes of these things saying like, "Okay, but how do I actually do this?"
That's the key question to ask, and I think people are finally starting to ask.
They are?
And it's hopefully we ask it loud enough that all the noise around this starts to quiet down. It's like, okay, what are we actually going
Right.
to do? Because there is some really cool stuff.
Really cool
Even
stuff.
once you strip away all the flashy, shiny bits
Yeah.
and get away from that and delve into what can really be done, that's still pretty exciting.
Yeah, and I mean, you think about it, it's a whole new modality, right? It's
Right.
a whole new way of being able to engage with your learners, so it's exciting, and so I can't wait to experiment a little bit more with that.
That's great. Well, Claire, I really appreciate you spending some
Yeah.
time with us here and shedding a little light on your corner of the world, which I don't think a lot of people get to look
Yeah,
into.
thanks for coming and finding out about car washing. It's a good time.
Well, there's that, but I also, the association space and things like that. And I think other people can learn from that because, you're, like I said, you're dealing with a little couple extra layers of complexity that, make your experience and your insights important, I think. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of They Learn, You Win, presented by Skooks. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow or subscribe in your podcast player. And follow me, David Wentworth, on LinkedIn. I try to distill what works and what doesn't for L&D leaders so you can stay up to speed on the latest insights, ideas, and tech. See you next time.